Zitty, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. You and I just got on to chat and we were both having a tough time. So you were just telling me about how when you are in a room with for work sometimes, and you're in a room with a bunch of white men, you can feel that heightened anxiety.
I do. Yeah. And it's just an awareness of the history of the country and the history of this state and the history of Greensboro. There's always discomfort. I mentioned when we talked earlier about, we understand science. And so I'm a nerd out for the science people. And I feel like it's important to talk about all the different elements of this issue because it's infuriating to have it dismissed as just an emotional thing. When we feel in like a heightened hypersensitivity or a hypervigilance, like protecting ourselves all the time in that sort of a way, your cortisol levels increase. And so you think about being in a constant or almost constant state of not kind of feeling like you fit in. Mm-hmm. And then of course the fear related to the images that we're seeing on media. I mean, it's a physiological experience that is unfamiliar to people who aren't Black. Yeah. It's really, really hard. And we apparently have done quite a good job of pretending like it isn't, because it's really difficult for some people who have had a belief that like, oh, they just need to work harder, or, oh, you have the same opportunities, you're smart, you should go there. It's like, no. It's way, way deeper. It's way, way deeper. And when your experience is minimized in that sort of a way, that's another stack on that stress, on that cortisol, on that trauma. And you're just constantly reliving it over and over again. And I really believe that what's happened now with the pandemic is that it's opened up space for all of us. Because this isn't just about Black people. This is about people, humanity, mankind. What's happened, in my opinion, in my view, is that we are misaligned from what divine law is. And people have done it on purpose. It's been done on purpose, where colonialism 101, Europeans come to Africa, and, divine law is about love. Divine law is about connection. It's about knowing in your heart what's right and wrong. And if all of us operate under like a divine law, we're all receiving different assignments and different channelings here. But what happens when man starts to create like their own law to the detriment of what the heart says about it, that's what we have here.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are making sense. And I just, for those listening, I just want to take a moment to thank Zitty for coming on and educating us, and just acknowledge the emotional burden that is being placed on you to do this work. And we had a conversation and you want to do this work, but I just want the white people listening to this, yes, educate yourself, listen, go find that information, but be careful. Like, don't just ask your friends to educate you.
Yeah. Well, just for the record.
Yeah.
I don't mind if you ask me. There are some people who do, because again, like I said before, I really am one of the fortunate ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm here not necessarily for myself. Some of it is about myself for sure, but I'm here for the people who don't have the option. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm here for the people whose like homes I've been in and I've seen how much they've struggled. People with good hearts who just want to work and make a living, take care of their families. And so you come into this system and you got to, fill out this form and go to this office, and everywhere you go, people are like, oh, sorry. Well, actually you have to do this. It's like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And at the end of the day, many people just end up giving up and clearly we see that it's interpreted as laziness, but this is a multi-layered, like multi-generational story that's unfolding before our eyes right now. And the people who are willing to give up willful ignorance to see what really is going on and what has been going on, I don't mind you asking me. I want you to ask me. I do have the capacity to be able to help with that. I also, you know, let's talk it through. It's not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the whole thing. That's the problem, is that anytime you take like one label and do this like sweeping thing, we then lose our permission as human beings to be individuals. And that's when that laws of man thing comes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The eyes of the Most High, Allah, El Shaddai, Elohim, Jehovah Jireh, all of it, we are designed to be custom made, you know? And that's Black and white people alike. And so this thing is about us really like, why do we care so much what other people think? And I'm saying that for not only the Black people who are having a difficult time speaking up, but also the white people and everyone really who is facing, you know, their own version of opposition, whether it be from family or from the job or whatever. And we're all getting the call to be brave right now. It is a clarion call for everybody to check all of our hearts and to make a decision about who we are choosing to serve right now. And so I have a lot of compassion for people who have really quite honestly been caught off guard about what's going on. And I know that they're like, you know, I know what's going on because I've been living it and been trying to communicate it as eloquently as possible. And so now I might not be as eloquent because that didn't work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's just where I'm coming from. And so, yeah, it is an emotional burden. It's an extraordinary emotional burden. And I know that there are many people, Black people, who feel like, don't ask me, educate yourself. And I understand that. I don't mind it because I genuinely believe in terms of my purpose, my divine purpose, I'm built for it. And so I'm having to learn how to do a better job of taking care of myself. And the obvious challenge is money. I mean, I took off a week from work, you know, which I had 3 weeks of sick leave accumulated because I didn't want to take a sick day because I need to show my face at work so they know that I'm committed and they know that I care, you know? And so I was like, I'm sick, you know? We're sick. And so I had to take that time so that I could just clear my own mind and figure out what my role is in all of this. And that's the calling to all of us, because everybody, you know, take the time. We got a whole pandemic, which, as it may turn out, might be a gift, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But take the time to like really question everything. Read, learn. Willful ignorance will not sustain us in the future. We can never go back now.
No.
Yeah.
It's, I like that you're saying we all have to be brave.
Yeah. We do.
Courageous.
Yeah, because for people who have to like buck against their family, who, you know, they were raised at the table, saying the N-word, making jokes about monkeys. But then if they're going to work and they really are great friends with their Black coworkers, they might be afraid to go back home and challenge, you know? We have to challenge one another respectfully, and maybe sometimes not, you know what I'm saying? But we really have to challenge one another and get to a place where we're willing to all on the line to stand for something. And this is it. Our distractions and stuff keep us all from standing for something. We've been glued to our phones, and that was on purpose. All these distractions, all these lights and stuff to keep us from really like connecting to the earth, to the sun, to all of these things around us that give us clues about what our individual divine purpose is. And so in that distraction, it's easy to get numb. Not only is it easy to get numb, but you've got these movies that are constantly throwing out violent imagery, so then we get desensitized to that. We also have films and history books that tell a version of history that doesn't include our true experience. And so we have to deal with that. And so it's a lot. And you know, not coincidentally, breath is going to be a really important part of how we're all going to get through this. And so in the spirit of breath, I know I've been running my mouth a lot. Let's pause for a second and breathe. And I'd love to hear more about how you're feeling too, you know?
Yeah, let's take that breath together. So
Yeah.
deep breath in. And slow exhale out.
Yep.
Zitty, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm feeling is acknowledging my own racism. Like, I think it's so important right now for all of us to look at where because here's the thing, our brains are designed to categorize things.
Absolutely.
That's how it works.
Right.
Which is racism.
Yeah. And which, by the way, that skill isn't inherently a bad thing. It's
right.
It's organization. We just have to understand how to utilize that skill. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So I'm looking at the ways in my life I have made microaggressions. What are from willful ignorance in some cases, what are the ways that I have contributed to the problem? Because if we're not willing to look at how we directly, like the person in the chair, is contributing to the problem, then we're never going to make progress. So it's like I have to look inward. And so it's been a going inward of how am I a part of the problem and what am I going to do about it? And then looking towards the teachers, who has already been doing the work. I'm a huge fan of Rachel Cargle right now, The Great Unlearn and Unpacking White Feminism, and the posts that she's putting out that are teaching me things that I didn't know. And, Guilford College just did a teach-in. They called it a teach-in this week. And it was really good. And one of the presenters, somebody asked them, what can allies do? And she was very quickly, and from like a place of pure emotion that was so refreshing to see, she said, what does that mean? What does ally mean? Because I don't know, which told me that, she's not getting that ally, right? Like, and what she said is, it's not ally, it's solidarity. Until you can truly feel what I feel and recognize that that is also happening to you, until you can stand with me as if it's happening to you, it's only solidarity, it's not ally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are kind of some of the things that I've been thinking about, and then really, really concerned for my community and the people I love in my community, and wondering what my role is or is not. Where do I, what are the places that I can make a difference? Where do I step back? How do I amplify the voices of leadership in the Black community that are already there?
Doing it. I mean, this is it right here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that it's so important for us to be able to model what it's like to have a conversation like this. Because again, there are some people who are in the Black community who feel like all white people are, or all cops are, and I'm resistant to anything, because we're individuals. And so I appreciate you so much for your sincerity and your humility. I remember I was talking to my friend Danielle. We lived in Atlanta, and it was just when I started studying the Bible, because I've been studying like holy texts for like a long time. I've always been like a truth seeker, and in 1999 was when I started my part of the journey. And I remember just getting so annoyed when people would talk about humility, because I was like, what is humility? What does that mean, that somebody just tells me what to do and I just do it, And she was like, no, it just means if someone shares something with you that you're willing to consider. You're willing to consider, what if they're right? You're willing to let it like percolate, let it marinate. Really like think about that thing, sit with it for a second. Are they right about me? I've had moments like that in my life where, even now I have because my brain is like always going, sometimes I have tuning in, and so I've had people close in my life like check me on that, like, Zitty, you just checked out, you know. And that's something that I've been told for a long time, and I was resistant, you know. And that's a really minuscule example based on everything that we're talking about, but we're trained or taught to not like when people tell us things not good about us. And that's part of the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've got to start normalizing being open to other people expressing to us something that might be unsavory about ourselves. And again, I'm going back to what Danielle told me, like, humility is like not necessarily internalizing everything, but consider, you know, what if they're right? And so I have repeatedly gone through my own transformation processes, and I'm really, I want to be able to like hold space and support other people who are going through their own transformations as well, you know? And on the practical side, I got to figure out what's going on with money. You know what I'm saying? And so it's an economic thing too, because again, in our community, we've got so many teachers, like you said, who we need all hands on deck right now. Mm-hmm. But these are people who have to work their 9 to 5 so that they can have insurance and they can have a steady check. And me, I mean, I just took a week off. I'm not sleeping hardly. I sleep like in 1 or 2 hour increments because I feel a heightened sense of like, oh, it's showtime. Like now, like, you know, that's what we need to be doing. There are some people who know exactly what I'm talking about right now. And you know that there's something you were born to do, and you're like, oh shoot, I'm up. That's what we're talking about. Like, now is your superhero moment. Now is like the underdog's comeback. We need all hands on deck. Anybody who's for humanity and healing and love and truth and accountability, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. You are so wise. You are so wise. And as the pressure cooker of this was building, I mean, you were the first person that came to mind of who I wanted to have a conversation with. Oh. And because you think so deeply about what's happening. And you are so, and you've seen so much of all of the different sides, and you are friends with so many different types of people. So you see it all. Yeah. And then layer upon that that you've studied leadership work for so long. And this is a call to leaders.
Absolutely.
And you said that. I mean, this is all hands on deck time. And this is an all hands on deck moment in history. Right. And, I think before we started recording, you said that you were made for this time.
Yeah.
And I feel that with you.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the reason that I believe that I am built for it is because, I smile a lot, but honey, the people who've been close in my life know that my life has been one of like one heartbreak after another. I have been in the valley of the shadow of death in more dimensions than you can imagine, just fighting for people, helping people. And again, not about me, not for me. Compassion. That's, if we all did, if everybody, would just like care for their fellow man, there wouldn't be that heavy burden on just certain people. That's what I mean when I say all hands on deck. And so we have to like care about each other. You know what I'm saying? And care about what our different experiences are. And so, yeah, I do believe that I am built for this. Not for me. And, forgive me, I'm like stumbling over my words because like let me pause for just a second, okay? Yeah. I'm just tired,
And it's like compounded on that tired is the background of COVID and like the not being able to touch each other. And, you know, it's like COVID probably opened up the space for this to be possible. And yet at the same time, it's like when we need to like be able to hug and hold hands and walk together, it's that much harder.
It is. It is. Yeah. But, you know, one of the things that I wanted to make sure to share is like this whole idea of leadership. We have a very linear idea of what a leader looks like. And again, I just so happen to be one of those people who, as I was growing up, I naturally was inclined towards the kinds of skills that people viewed as like leadership skills. But what we have to recognize is that leadership doesn't look just like education, PhD. There are leaders among us who have been overlooked over and over and over and over and over and over and over again because they don't look the part. And because their brand of leadership doesn't suit what this man-made law says a leader is. We have to relinquish that man-made linear way of thinking and open ourselves up to considering another way, you know? What if there's something different?
You know, what you're making me think of is like the whole time that I spent working in a big, prominent financial institution, I never felt like the people who were Black got to be themselves.
You felt that.
I felt it. I could see the code switching. I could see, and why does everyone have to fit into this white person box of what's appropriate?
Right.
And it doesn't feel okay. Why are we asking people to change tone and delivery? Like, why aren't we learning how to interpret language in that way?
In multilingual, you know, having the ability to communicate across those lines. I mean, imagine being able to speak French and Spanish and Portuguese and Xhosa and, you know, Zulu, you know, that's what it is. It's like letting go of our intellectual laziness and like stretching toward, you know, somebody else and being willing to learn. And, you know, you mentioned microaggressions at the beginning. That's one of those words in this space that is like super intimidating. I'm not a super fan of it, but it's one of those words that is familiar in academic-y land. But for people who aren't familiar with the research side of things, you know, what's a microaggression?
Right.
An example, I think often about like dress codes in offices. Mm-hmm. I don't want to wear pearls. Like, you see what I have on now. I'm an African woman. I have this, you know, scarf. I have it wrapped around and tied around. This is how I feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And if there was a way for me to feel free to just rock what I want to rock at work without feeling like people are looking at me crazy. I mean, even as much thought, you cannot imagine how much thought and effort I have to put into my hair to make it like socially acceptable. Right. That's crazy. This is my hair that comes from my own head.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then I'm told that I need to make it look like yours.
Believe me, you don't want to look like that. Yeah. No, yeah, and that's not okay. It's not okay.
It's not okay. It's not okay. We have to do better. We can never go back to what it was before.
No.
And again, there are all these different pockets. It's politics, it's legal, it's economic, but foundationally it's spiritual. And then practically for Black people, it's economic. So for people who are listening now and wondering what tangible thing you can do, money, real easy. I mean, for me, for example, how I want to be able to continue to engage people, but if I have to go back to UNCG and no knock on UNCG, I want to be clear. I'm super grateful, you know, for the opportunity there, and I don't want to dishonor that opportunity. All right, but the truth is that I know that's not what I'm built to do. You know what I'm saying? I know that I'm a teacher, and I know that, you know, people ask you that question all the time, like, oh, if you could do what you wanted all the time and not have to worry about money, what would it be? And for me, it is this. It's conversation. Like, I love people generally, and you specifically, you know, but we just have to have like room to be ourselves. And so money is a big part of that. And so if there are people who want to support, Cash App. I don't want to fill out a grant application. I don't want to fill out a form. That's another way that puts like roadblocks up. My mind doesn't even think like that. I don't want to sit and write an 18-page grant. When I have the idea, that's when I make connections with people, it just moves at a different kind of pace, different kind of a way. And when I'm blocked with things like that, for me, it just like deflates it, and I'm too tired to do this work. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's like, just send it, and I mean, I may be oversimplifying, but that's what I mean when I say like, yeah, economics is a huge part of it. And, part of the untold history that people are awakening to right now is the fact that not only have Black folks not been lazy, but we have built our own economies. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street had our own streets, banks, everything. And bombs literally got dropped on it. Literal bombs destroyed. And that's happened countless times, where people who intentionally did not want Black people to prosper would intentionally destroy what they did. So then you think about the discouragement of that stacked on people assuming like, oh, you must be lazy, that's why you don't have nothing. On top of people who are like, well, if you just work harder, it's just like, what the fuck? We were betrayed. This is some Judas type stuff. It betrayed over and over again, and coaxed in, mined for information in our trust, and then stabbed in the back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so now in the leadership space, one of the things that I put up was this whole 48 law thing. It is unconscionable to me. If you line up the principles in that book with these holy scriptures that our Bible Belt folks claim to adhere to, something ain't adding up. You know what I'm saying?
And I've never heard of that book. I'm like,
the leadership space is quite popular. I mean, like top executives like that. And I guarantee you, our current president, I mean, this is his playbook.
Right. It looked like it.
Yeah, it's unholy. It's dishonorable. It's dishonorable.
Yeah. And I think too about how people are like, the system's broken, we have to change the system, but the system was always it was designed to be this way. And so we need a new system. We can't fix, it's not broken, it's doing what it was always supposed to do. It was always supposed to keep Black people down.
That's right.
And if we as a white people don't want to look at it, then we are part of the problem.
Right. And I mean, going back to scripture, there's a scripture that says you can't pour new wine into old wineskin, or old wine in a new wineskin. Either way, the point is, you can't, we've tried to pour like new solutions into an old wineskin. We got to scrap the whole thing. We got to scrap the whole wine. And it, I know we won't be able to do it like tonight, but, and it is a long game, but I'm just saying that the mentality that is opening up right now is like new wineskin, new wine,
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'd never heard of abolitionism until like around the police force until this week.
Yeah.
What was that?
What have you learned about it?
Well, I've learned that because the system has always been designed to oppress Black people and people of color, that we need to create a new system. And then I've also heard that there's a school of thought that it's like demilitarize the police.
Right.
And because citizens of the United States are so armed, I don't know what it would look like to abolish the police force, but I can tell you, I understand that. And if there was a good solution to replace it, I could really get behind that, because like you said, it's like we're trying to pour new wine into old wine right now, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, so this is the other thing. There are examples of cities that have effectively cultivated like police community partnerships. I think that the biggest challenge for Greensboro is figuring out what our new wineskin looks like. And part of that is, again, seeing our hidden figures, our hidden leaders rising up. You know what I'm saying? And that's exactly what's happening right now. But it is possible. It is possible. And it has happened. It's just Greensboro, we're just going to have to keep talking to one another, and we're going to have to, you know, continue to grow what it is that works for us, you know, because again, it goes back to the whole, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I said this after you started the recording or not, but I really feel like it's important to mention. Did I say the thing about the generalization about cops and how, you know,
please share that.
Okay, yeah. So one of the challenges here is that, you know, this whole, anytime we're doing a sweeping generalization, it's hard. And so the cops are struggling with the same thing, because let's say a Black male cop, for example, who got into the force for the love of the people, to truly protect and serve. But now everybody's so riled up. And if we're thoughtless about that, you've got people who are yelling F the police to cops who really are there to protect and serve. And so that's why we can't be reckless or thoughtless about this. We can't be haphazard about it. We can't be lazy about it. Like, we need to fully engage in what's going on here so that we can make a decision and engage in conversations with the police who want to engage. I mean, I can't imagine, you know, everybody's struggling. We just need to talk. But the beginning of it is addressing policy, like about, you know, body cameras, chokeholds, those things that are written into legislation that we can go ahead and make forward progress in while we're figuring out what else. And you know, there are multiple things happening at the same time. You hear some people who have really divisive language, like, oh, you need to either do this or do this. No, it's and there are multiple things happening at the same time. And again, that's why this isn't something that's it can't be led by like an individual or a figurehead. It's multiple points, and it just, you know, it has to continue to spread out in that way. So again, it comes back to you tuning into what your assignment is. Is there an idea that you've had that you know you can contribute toward this? Yeah, so my heart goes out to the good cops right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So just, I want us to think about that as well and be thoughtful.
I reached out to a friend who is a Black cop today too. And you know, I'm worried for our community.
Yeah.
Period. Right. Like our community, like you are saying, I mean, you've just outlined it. Like, we have to look out for each other.
Yeah.
And we all have to shoulder this burden together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What else do you want to share today?
I think that's it right now.
So I've got 2 questions for you then. So yesterday you shared something about Moana, and you related it to what was going on. And I think there are a lot of people that have children that are watching this. Yeah. But honestly, I love Moana. So I loved the way you related the message of Moana to what's happening now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm basically a 5-year-old on my inside. So yeah. I love Disney movies and cartoons and stuff, among other things. But, you know, Moana, the whole thing is, you know, I love it because it's about like being brave. She like has this sense that there's a calling in her life, which again, we all have that. We all have that. And the elements are really important. You've got water, you've got sun, which again, we've gotten so disconnected from that. That's a very African thing. You know what I'm saying? Is being in the dirt, is trees, it's being in the sun. But we, you know, we kind of poo-poo on that or make it seem weird or kind of woo-woo or something, when that's like the origin of what our connection is. And so Moana illustrates like her connection with all of that and her purpose. You see all the different oppositions that she faces along the way, her working to like claim her name and like stand her ground regardless of who came against her. I mean, she was dismissed, she was knocked off the boat, she was made fun of, and she just kept coming back, and she was like, I am Moana, and she states her name, she states, you know, where she comes from, her lineage, because there's power in lineage, you know? That's another reason why it has been such, and I put this in one of my posts, it's been such an effective tool to weaken a people, to sever them from their family, sever them from their land and their country, sever them from their fathers and their mothers, you know? And so in that, there's this incredible opportunity for us to welcome in the honoring of ancestors. And, you know, the story with her, this is definitely a spoiler alert, by the way. Like, I feel like, you know, but hey. But basically,
we've seen Moana already.
yeah. But basically, I mean, the dude, Maui, which to me kind of represents, you know, that man-made law, that greed, that wanting what you want at all costs. So he goes and he steals the heart of Tafiti, which is like the heart of the earth. And when he does that, darkness falls over the land, you know? And so Moana's people become afraid. There was a time where they used to venture out, they're on the boats, they were free. But when they become afraid, they confine themselves. And so the people on the island, they're confined, they don't even understand, there's just danger on the horizon. That's the feeling of danger on the horizon, which, you know, make the parallel with Blackfoot. When you're always feeling like there's danger on the horizon, you have to stay, you know, inside. So, one thing I wanted to mention, I was talking to somebody yesterday who was like, you know, it's so strange. I go to white people's houses and sometimes they don't even have blinds. I mean, I cannot, I'm not comfortable in a house where there are no blinds or the blinds are open and it's dark outside. That is unconscionable to me. You know what I'm saying? And that's like that's a cultural thing. That's a cultural thing where if you're feeling like you always have to like look out, you know, you don't want anybody looking in, you know, that's part of it too. So anyway, Moana, she, you know, is communing with her grandmother passes away. But during the time where she's going on the journey, she takes the boat out to get the heart of Tafiti back, and grandma comes to give her comfort and to give her strength and to give her wisdom and ideas. And, you know, my own grands, you know, I was born in Swaziland, and, you know, we came to Greensboro when I was 4. Ancestry wasn't a thing that I was really introduced to until I started dancing with the Igwin Dance Company when I was like 14. And so for me, ancestry got introduced into my experience early, but there are so many people who don't have that. And if you think about just kind of that dangling loneliness and feeling kind of disconnected and not knowing what your root structure is, I mean, someone who doesn't know their root, when the storm comes, you topple over. When you know what your root structure is, the wind comes and you can dance in that thing. You know what I'm saying? And so ancestry is a really important part of all of this. The other thing is, wait, did I answer your question just now? Oh, Moana.
Yes, yes. It's so a power. The way you related that is such a powerful story, and it gives us hope, because I think that right now it's so easy. It would be so easy to say, why bother?
Yeah.
How can we affect change if it's so rooted into the foundation of how we were built? How do we make change? And so what I think was so great about you telling the story of Moana and giving people hope and through that story was that we need to stick to the hope right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to. I mean, because if we don't, then what are we even doing? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We have to find ways to find hope in there. And again, when you think about the big picture, you get totally overwhelmed and just want to like eat Cheetos and take a nap. You know what I'm saying? But when you think about just yourself, focus on yourself, focus on what you can do right now today, and just take it one day at a time like that. And then find ways to connect with other people whose thought processes and mindset and heart set aligns with yours. And that'll give you strength and hope too. Because what you're going to find is as you're talking to them, just like how we're talking, you'll be able to say like, wow, I can relate, you know, and so it validates your experience. And when our experience is validated, it gives us hope and it gives us comfort. And what Black Lives Matter is all about is validation, acknowledgement, and repentance, you know? One of the things that I talk with people about, like I was thinking, you know, there was a season where I worked in wealth management and learned about life insurance. So you know how life insurance works. If someone accumulates a debt, a monetary debt that they don't want to pass on to their children, again, generations, ancestry, you get you some life insurance. That way it doesn't get passed on to the next. Well, what's happened is that there's some folks whose grannies and great-grands and great-great-grands have accumulated a karmic debt. They've done wrong. And they might not have seen the consequences of that wrong in their lifetime. The life insurance is their offspring doing the right thing, helping with the economics of the Black community, helping to reverse this thing in tangible form. It's not enough. Nobody is interested in hearing anymore about what, you know, we don't care about that. If you're not willing to really help tangibly in some sort of a way, you can save that. Get out of the way right now, because we need to figure out land. We need to figure out taking care of our communities. We need to take care of our babies. We need to take care of our mothers and fathers in our community. We need to take care of our health. Black women suffer disproportionately from uterine fibroids. This is personal. I'm sharing it because I know that there are so many people who can relate. With me, you know, I've always been, as far as I know, healthy. I've had good credit most of my adult life. I've always been pretty financially responsible. And what happened is that after I left the wealth management firm, I was a 1099, a sole proprietor. And so, in other words, my last day working on that job was my last day of health insurance. When you're an employee, that health insurance will extend 30 days. Well, so for me, I didn't think that 30 days was a big deal because I was going to get new insurance that next month. Well, wouldn't you know it, that was a time where there was one night where I experienced abdominal pain like I've never experienced before. And I found myself in the Moses Cone waiting room, and only to find out that I have, you know, a uterine fibroid, you know. And I started doing some research on like the cause of it. And, you know, and again, it's another one of those things where Black women suffer disproportionately from it. You think about cortisol, the role of cortisol. You think about the placement of it in your womb and the ripping apart of families. Like everything is connected and everything is spiritual, you know? And so that resulted in my own financial situation like plummeting. I found myself as a PhD in January of 2019, like pinching pennies. But the story that this system will tell you is if you just go get an education and you work really hard and you do this and do this. I'm one of the ones who did all the right things and I still found myself screwed. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And of course, you know, I didn't do all the right things. Right, but I'm just saying, like in terms of like that expectation, yeah. I jumped through the hoops. I did all the things, and I still found myself just in a ball on the floor. Like I can't get ahead for nothing. Like what is going on? You know?
And doing all the right things is a myth.
Yeah,
it's a myth.
Yeah, it is, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, you know, the difficulty with hearing that you might be wrong. Mm-hmm. We just have to let go of the discomfort with that. In fact, I want us to embrace that, like start asking each other questions that open the door for being told that you're wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like let people tell you you're wrong. Because when you continue to adjust and keep checking with yourself, the closer you get to yourself, the more, you know, just the more aligned you'll be with everything, like all together, you know? So the short of that is, you know, let's take away like that negative stigma of being corrected and instead replace it with like a genuine curiosity, you know, and start asking questions that are, you know, objective of each other and asking for understanding, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pardon me. I keep burping. I'm like drinking my drink. Excuse me.
So last question, what are tangible steps that we can be taking? And you and I have shared, we all can't do everything.
Yeah.
It's not a call to do everything, but I was thinking maybe you and I could brainstorm some things.
Yeah. Well, so one of the controversies in all of this, with the pandemic is, do we protest, do we not protest? I am making the choice to go to Blackout NC tomorrow, which is in LaBauer Park at 2:00, I believe. I posted something about it on my site, but I'm going to wear a mask. And I'm going to wear my all black and be there with everyone in solidarity. And so that's one thing that people can do. But again, check yourself. If the pandemic, if COVID is a risk, check your household. Some of y'all don't need to come out. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We have to think for ourselves, which is why this whole curfew thing is, again, control, and I know that our leadership is doing, what they can, but that's the frustration, is in response to something being amiss, control can't be it. The only kind of control that we can have is self-control. That's what, again, the Bible, that's what Jesus said, And so if we're in leadership and we're trying to control other people in any kind of a way, that's problematic. That's problematic. At the same time, I realize that, leaders, it's tough to make decisions for a lot of people because you're never going to make everybody happy. You're not ever going to make everybody happy. And the way that if you're making the right decision or not is if you got to sit with yourself in it. Are you doing the right thing? Is this the right thing to do? And if you're not sure, get differing opinions around you. It goes back to, again, normalizing being told that you're wrong. It's really, really important to hear different perspectives so that with those different perspectives, you can then come to a decision that is just and right for whatever that day is. And so it's just we have to re-engage in life. We've all been just like checked out in a number of different ways and distracted. Not all of us, but there's an awakening aspect of this whole thing that's happening.
Yeah. And I also love what you said about like the financial piece of it. It's like, if we can Venmo a friend $25 so they can get dinner, I think that's a thing too right now. Like, I think that's, consider the emotional burden of what people are experiencing right now. And, if you were in that shoes, what would be a kindness that would help make you feel good? But we can't, and money isn't the only thing that's going to fix this problem.
Yeah, but it's a big part of it.
But it's a big part. Yeah, education.
Yeah, but I mean, even that, like, why are teachers paid so little? Teachers are so important. Good quality teachers for a community that's teaching like our children how to discover who they are. Like, that is so important. Yeah. And who's able to like love and treat all the kids like with, love. But even in our schools, we've got teachers in our school systems who, again, are going back home behind closed doors and calling these little kids monkeys. What does that do to this little child who the teacher may or may not say something like that or that harsh directly to the child, but if the belief is in her heart about this child, that child is going to be treated differently. And the child doesn't know, so they're observing. So then they start thinking, well, maybe they are better than me. So when you're thinking based on how you're treated by other people, that maybe that's how we grow up, and we, you feel like, oh, that's how it's perpetuated. The whole white supremacy culture gets perpetuated in so many different ways,
Layer on layer of it.
Yeah. So you're right. Education is definitely a huge part of it. But one of the conversations that has to happen here is, in terms of funding and policy, what are we doing with our educational system? And then, is it working? The curriculum is not built for African folks. SATs, analogies, it's not even built for the way that my mind, I don't even think like that. Yeah. But I can and I did, but it's just not my way of approaching things. And again, we're going there. There's a scripture that says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. So it's like, just because I can do it doesn't mean it's beneficial for me. Just because I can, I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're great. But and I also think about like, what can we tangibly do right now? And I just want to call those that are listening to this to, and really specifically the white people who are listening to this to follow Rachel Cargill, research, like unlearn the history that we were taught in schools is not the truth. It's a whitewashed version of the truth that makes us feel good about ourselves, that makes it feel like this was a problem, we addressed it, and now things are fine. And that's not the truth.
Right. And think about, going along with the school theme, Montessori style, okay? Some people are here with the whole understanding of systemic racism. Other people have been studying it for years. And so don't be hard on yourself. We understand Erwin Montessori. It's allowing individual students to progress at their pace, right? Mm-hmm. And so be patient with yourself, unless you're doing something jacked up and you need to change it. This isn't permission for you to like continue in your madness. But I'm just saying, if your heart is sincere about learning, don't put this enormous amount of pressure on yourself to, be in the same place as someone who's been in this work for 20 years. There's a lot to learn out here, there's a lot to learn. And the more you learn, the more you want to learn. And that's the beauty of knowledge. Yes. That's the beauty of knowledge. Which again, legislation. Mid 1800s, Nat Turner, who was an enslaved African, staged a rebellion to help slaves get free. Slave masters got mad. Government made it illegal for Black people to read because they knew that knowledge and freedom went hand in hand. And if they were going to continue to dominate over these people and dominate their minds and have them thinking that they're less than, we can write into law, man-made law, that they can't read. They'll they get killed or arrested for getting caught reading. And so I want us to think about like the magnitude of that, like the power of learning. And that is significant on all sides. Everybody's learning and unlearning right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts you have that you'd like to share right now? We've gone over a lot.
Well, be brave and do the right thing.
Yeah. And I want to share that the Yoke and Abundance book club is meeting June 23rd. Okay. And we are reading Stamped, the remixed version.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. And I've heard there's a bigger version that's like a full history of racism, anti-racism. Yeah. But then there's one written for young adults. And so we're going to actually read the young adult version first, because I've heard that. So it's really fun. It's a fun way of learning tough things. Yeah. And the proceeds from that book club are going to the Loveland Foundation, which provides the ability for Black women to get therapy at free and discounted rates. So I hope that folks will get the book, that we'll read it, and we'll have a discussion about it together, and that money will go towards a really worthy cause. So
that's doing the work. That's it. I love it.
Zitty, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast once again and talking about something that's difficult.
Yeah. We can do it again. We can do it as much as we need to, because clearly things are moving quite rapidly by the day. So I'm happy to anytime.
Thank you.
All right.